For the official use only, the FOUO file this week, I'm going to give you part 2 of the conference breakdown, but more specifically the Big Ten, and even more specifically, Iowa fans, rejoice. This time you have a friend in the media that doesn't think you suck. Your patience, your poise, your understanding has only basically proven why you are the most understanding fans in the Big Ten. However, wrongfully, it's made a lot of the guys at the top think that you're naive, and so you've been a target just to fall in line. You've waited, and you've waited, and you've waited your turn, and now you're going to get it. At this point, it looks like, yeah, Iowa may have gotten in the new divisional conference breakdowns. Last week in Part 1, they actually broke the news live as I was on air. In Part 1, the only good thing to come out of the new lineup was the elimination of one non-conference team. But only if you replace that non-conference team with what you would say would be a good team. You don't pull Ohio State and put in Nebraska. Here's the real reason for the Big Ten, which we all know. It's they want the big divisional cash, which is fine. Nobody has a problem with that. I'm fine with that. But number 2, they want the big divisional cash twice. And here's where you have to start to fall in line, because we have to begin to protect the Ohio State and Michigan game rivalry. If you put them in different divisions and then you have them schedule the last game of the year between those two, the Big Ten figured out pretty simply that they can double dip the big money of the divisional conference playoff twice. Iowa continues not to gain respect in the national media for one real reason. They continue to lose credibility because the perception is that they blow big games. Now, we all remember last year, and if you look at the schedule and how Iowa was ranked, Iowa had the 8th hardest schedule in the country, and they barely made the top 10. Now we're going to have new divisions. We're going to take away the schedule and the big games. Now water down that schedule with a weakened division, and no matter how good you are, you'll never make the top 10, even with a divisional playoff championship. Now, if there was a playoff system, there's obviously no problem, and we all know the BCS National Championship is basically determined by a computer. Now, Iowa and their big games and their big schedules are basically being pulled. That was the only thing keeping them contenders on the national scene. Weak division, weak conference championship, good luck with a BCS bowl game. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, and Wisconsin in one division, and it's fair to put Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern in another. It's a far weaker division, and let's be honest, when is Michigan going to be good again? I mean, we all are really hoping that they might, but if they're not good, we're going to be in a really bad spot. Now, I'm also going to drop this little bombshell that I know has been going around for a little bit. It's drop Iowa State. It does no good for Iowa with the Big Ten division lined up the way that it is. A loss by ISU just simply kills Iowa. But how does this affect you from the real reason that we're all here? The cash. What is the breakdown of the Big Ten? Well, I'm going to bust it up for you here. The Big Ten will divide roughly $34.4 million minus expenses and what used to be 11 schools. Now, take each of those schools and they're going to receive roughly about $2 million each. Now, the University of Iowa has 18 men's and women's soccer teams, so let's just assume for the moment that all of the $2 million is going to go to the football team, which we know it isn't, but for this, let's just say it is. Now, divide that $2 million into the number of seats that Kinnick Stadium has, which is now 70,585. Divide that number by the number of home games, and the number you come up with is $4.05 per seat per game is what the Big Ten's contribution to Iowa is.
Well, if you're happy, then I'm happy, because after all, what?
That's what the Big Ten is paying you to go along with the new format, and most likely it's on the high side because we all know that that money is going to be busted out to other athletics as well. So here's the top 5 revenues in the Big Ten, if you're wondering, as of 2008, as reported by the Education Department, and I'm going to say in round numbers because give or take $1 million between friends, it doesn't matter. Ohio State at $65 million, Michigan at $57 million, Penn State at $53 million, Michigan State at $43 million, and Iowa and Wisconsin both at $37 million. Now, all of this means one thing. As long as you play along with the Big Ten new divisional conference to support the 2 biggest revenue earners, Michigan and Ohio State, you might grow that whole $4.05 to $5. Now, maybe it's just me, or maybe the capitalist in me that always wants to invest in myself first, not Ohio State or Michigan. I know I'm not the only one guy that thinks this. There's at least one more. I'm Jason Van Zetten.